Hello, welcome to Honors Biology, our chapter on cell reproduction. This is lecture video number 1 for cell reproduction. Let us begin. Now, it's interesting. This chapter is on cell reproduction, and we first talk about chromosomes to begin this whole process. So let's talk briefly about cell reproduction before we go straight into these chromosomes. Cells. We're going to learn in this chapter why cells divide. Well, they divide for three reasons. Reason number 1, repair. If something is broken or a cell is damaged, something isn't working right, cells will reproduce to repair damaged cells. Okay, that's reason number 1. Reason number 2, when something or an organism grows, it gets bigger. Sure, the cells get bigger, but they get bigger to a point. They don't keep getting bigger or they become very inefficient. We learned that in an earlier chapter. So when an organism is bigger, it is made of more cells. That's really what happens to it. So when organisms are larger, yes, they are made out of more cells than smaller organisms, basically. So that's the second reason. Reason number 1, repair. Reason number 2, to grow. And reason number 3, for procreation, which is mating for the purpose of producing offspring. All right. So to produce offspring, to repair, and finally, the third one is to grow. Those are the 3 reasons why cells reproduce. So an important part of the cell is the genetic information in the cell, and those are generally called chromosomes. And chromosomes are made out of DNA. So this is a bunch of DNA. And sometimes the DNA gets wrapped around proteins, like it's showing you here. The proteins it gets wrapped around are called histones. All right. And there's also other proteins that are used that help read the coding in the DNA, and those are called non-histone proteins. Okay, and we're going to talk in more detail about these histone proteins in a second in our lecture. And by the way, chromosomes are those chunks of DNA that carry a lot of information, and that information is in the form of genes, and those genes are the codes that your body has for making proteins. All right. Chromosomes, what are they made out of? 2 pieces, generally. 2 pieces. Each piece is called a chromatid. Each chromatid is an exact genetic copy or duplicate of the other one. There are a lot of times they're called sister chromatids, like it says here, because they are genetically identical to each other. Why would your cells need an exact copy of their information? So that if they want to make more cells, they have a copy of their information, and that copy of their information can go into the new cell. So technically, when a new cell is made, it will only get one of these chromatids. That chromatid later on will copy itself and produce a full chromosome. The chromosome gets split in half when a cell is dividing and making 2 new cells. The connection point of the chromatids is called the centromere. Now, inside of a typical cell is a bunch of DNA, and that DNA is not wrapped up tight. When it's wrapped up real tight, it's condensed into a chromosome. Your DNA is only a chromosome for the purpose of dividing. So when your cells are not dividing, the DNA inside of them is not chromatin. The DNA inside of them is kind of like spaghetti. It is called chromatin. It's not that tightly coiled. This is tightly coiled, condensed. This is very loose DNA. All right. So between the divisions, only when the cell is dividing does it get really tight. So between cell divisions, DNA is chromatin. Okay. And this is the information that's used to create proteins and control the cell. So this is how DNA controls cells in the form of the chromatin. Chromosomes are so tight, their coding can't be read. The coding is within the chemical makeup, and you can't read the coding when it's hid inside of this really wound up tight information. Now, how many chromosomes does a healthy human being have? They have 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs. Each pair, you get one of each pair. One came from mom, one came from dad. One came from mom, one came from dad. It's not always the first one. Dad, mom, dad, mom, dad, mom. It doesn't matter which order. So these are the pairs. Each pair gets a number. The largest ones are pair number 1. So this number 1, you got one from mom and one from dad. These are called homologous chromosomes. These are the pairs that I am talking about. So one of each pair comes from mom, one of each pair comes from dad, and you get 2. That's where you get 2. Chromosomes 1 through 44, all the way up here to pair 22, are called autosomes. The very last 2 are called sex chromosomes. If someone has two X's, they are a female. If someone has an X and a Y, they are male. Okay, so these are called homologous. Homo means same. So they pretty much have the same types of genes. They do have the same types of genes on them. For example, they might have a gene here for heart development, eyeball development, lung development. They're going to have all of the same genes, but you're getting one of them from mom and the other set are coming from dad. A karyotype is a picture of the chromosomes. And let me go back. This is a karyotype. This is a picture of the chromosomes. Diploid is a fancy word that means having two sets of chromosomes. So humans, your diploid number is 46. That means you have all your pairs and then you have 46 total chromosomes. All right. Somatic cells are body cells. So body cells have a full set of chromosomes in them. See, you have most of the cells of your body are somatic cells. You only have two kinds of cells, somatic cells and sex cells. Sex cells are sperm in men, ova or eggs in females. So eggs and sperm are the only sex cells. All the rest of your cells are somatic. So all the cells of your body except your sex cells have 46 chromosomes. Sex cells have half. They are not diploid. Sex chromosomes have 23 in them. So mom has 23, dad has 23. Together they come together. 23 plus 23 makes a baby or a zygote with 46 chromosomes. So once again, sex cells in males have 23, sex cells in females have 23. The egg and the sperm come together. They make a human that's fertilized egg, a zygote that has 46 chromosomes. So a human's diploid number is 46. A human's haploid number, that means their sex cells, is 23. Okay, here's another karyotype, a picture of chromosomes. This one is showing you Down syndrome. Down syndrome is caused by having an extra 21st chromosome. So that means mom and dad, one of them, when they were making a sperm or an egg, they were doing this process called meiosis. We'll talk about it later in the chapter. Something went wrong. So their sperm or egg had an extra chromosome, and that an extra 21st chromosome leads to Down syndrome. So these people, they would have 47 chromosomes, not 46. This is showing you, for example, here's a normal male. Here's a disease where a person gets a third chromosome for number 18. That's called Edwards syndrome. Just so you know, if you get an extra number 1, that is a miscarriage. An extra number 2, you're going to get a miscarriage. An extra number 3, you're going to get a miscarriage. Most of them, you get an extra, it will lead to a miscarriage. The ones that do not lead to a miscarriage are number 18, possibly, and even having an extra 18 could lead to a miscarriage. An extra 18 could lead to a miscarriage, could lead to an actual surviving and not being a miscarriage. An extra number 13 called Patau syndrome, that fetus could survive and possibly not be miscarried. An extra sex chromosome here, Klinefelter syndrome, they can survive and not be miscarried. And I just went over an extra 21 is Down syndrome. Extras of any of the others or missing any of the other ones will lead to death. The only ones you can be missing, you can have one X and survive with 45 chromosomes. All these are 47, 47, and 47. Generally, if you have an extra one, like I said, that's a miscarriage. That's not someone who's going to survive. All right. Haploid, I just mentioned it briefly. Haploid is containing a half set of chromosomes. And which cells have a half set? Those are the sex cells. They have a half set. And another fancy name for sex cells are gametes. So sperm and egg are sex cells. Sperm and egg are gametes. If a sperm has 23 and an egg has 23, 23 plus 23 makes a zygote with 46. So humans, our haploid number is 23. Our diploid number is 46. And on our last slide for this lecture, prokaryotic DNA, bacterial DNA. Okay, so bacterial DNA is simpler than human DNA. It's usually circular, as shown here. Okay, circular. Human DNA is not circular. It's like if you can stretch it out, it would be like a long string. It's linear, technically. Prokaryotic cells or bacteria, they do not have a nucleus. Eukaryotes do. Okay. Prokaryotic chromosomes are simpler, I already mentioned that, than eukaryotic chromosomes. Prokaryotic DNA, it doesn't get coiled up around those histones like eukaryotic DNA, like ours does. Most prokaryotes only have one chromosome. Sometimes they have an additional piece called a plasmid, another circular hunk of DNA. And this is the big difference, is like I said already, Prokaryotic chromosomes are circular, and human and eukaryotic chromosomes are not. They're linear. Not just humans, eukaryotic chromosomes are not. They are not circular. Okay, and I believe that will end our lecture today.